Okay.
All right, good morning, trustees. Today is July 8th, 2024, and so this is our July 4th workshop. Excited to kick off July, where I think this is officially turning the page to a brand new school year. So today, at our board workshop, we do not have any public comments. And at today's board workshop, we're going to have an academic data update. And most importantly, we're going to talk about our district instructional focus for the 24-25 school year. This is a real conversational kind of meeting where our trustees get to ask any questions that they have, and we're doing our best to inform you, the community, before what is really our most important strategic priority area, which is student learning, growth, and progress. Our Chief Academic Officer, Sonia Howard, is actually ill today, and so I was grateful to have Jen Carney be able to team up on this presentation. And Lindsay Harris and Heather Stover are also going to present information that's going to be very useful to this conversation as well. So I just want to start off this conversation with some key takeaways. The first one is in any kind of, there's always going to be a problem to solve. There's always going to be a challenge to work through in order to improve student learning. There's never such thing as we've made it, right? It's always, what is the problem standing in the way of student learning, and how do we move past it? And so I always want to center ourselves by talking about the problem to solve is the implementation of the right systems and processes to improve student learning. But leadership is the solution. District leaders are campus leaders, and I am confident in the conversations that we've had this summer, I'm confident in the leadership that we have, and our sense of team, our sense of focus, being able to address the needs of students so that every student is learning at the highest levels possible. The teacher and learning, and Ms. Carney will be able to speak to this, but the teaching and learning department has streamlined the organization of their team, personnel, and their focus. Just when trustees, when you walked in, you probably walked by a group of elementary English language arts and reading teachers that are working today to put together curriculum resources for our teachers for the next school year. They're using what the data is telling them, and they're revising the curriculum so that teachers can use that curriculum and we can hold folks accountable to following that curriculum so that we have that sense of uniformity across the school district. What students are learning and how we expect them to go about that. That is exhausting work. Those people are going to sleep well tonight because they're doing mental gymnastics right now. We do understand that we have to organize our system to meet and surpass region and state averages when it comes to end of the year outcomes. That is our expectation. And then also, we also acknowledge that mastering the content and understanding the test item format are two different, unique challenges. Sometimes, we'll take, I'm going to use my son as a 16-year-old as an example. He's going to be a junior in high school. He has, every year he's been to school, the STAR test or EOC hasn't even been a conversation in the house. He just somehow gets to master it every single school year. He does pretty well in his classes. Not as well as Dad wants him to do, but he does pretty well. All of us who've raised teenagers know that doing well in school and doing well in the SAT are two totally different ballgames. That part of that is helping a kid be accustomed and be comfortable with how the SAT asks certain questions. So part of our challenge in curriculum design is to make sure we're not only addressing the content, the standard, but we're also trying to figure out if that's how a test item is asking a kid a question, what needs to change about instruction so that kids feel confident going into that test. We are never going to be a test-taking factory. We are never going to do drill and kill sheets, but we do have to do what's necessary so our students feel confident when they go into those assessments. So, with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Jen Carney. I'm so grateful she's here. She's one of our key leaders when it comes to student learning, growth, and progress. She was the woman for the job. So off to you.
Thank you. I hope today is just conversational and please feel free to ask questions. You know, you don't have to be formal or wait till the end or anything like that. So get the information you need as it arises. And then make sure I clarify if I need to. So, today we're going to talk about academic data updates and highlights, and we'll spend a lot of time digging into some of our most recent data from the STAR exam and kind of break it down, sort of a high level, and then narrow in on some specific focuses as well. So we'll talk about that through the lens of STAR redesign, a review of district spring end of course and STAR data. So we're for sure looking at high school and points of pride and areas of growth for both. An analysis and summary of the data. And then we have spent a great deal of our time in June when that data became available, deciding what's next. And so, and where we need to pivot, that sort of thing. So we're going to talk about that through the lens of data considerations, instructional priorities, and instructional support for our campuses. So we'll just jump right in. As you know, STAR has been redesigned, and we are now in our second year of it, and we are learning more about that. And we know, just looking at the results from STAR 2.0 this year, that we have obviously some work to do. We know that taking an online test, especially at the elementary level, is a different challenge that our teachers haven't faced with their students in the past. We know that there are a lot of new question types. It's not simply a multiple choice exam. That's especially true in our math, STAR exams and algebra EOC. There's drag and drops, there's just different types of questions. And as Dr. Paddleville mentioned, if students aren't exposed to that or aren't used to that, it can be quite a challenge. And so bringing that to the surface and understanding the impact of it is incredibly important.
Here's a question.
Absolutely.
When you said it was brought in, so this was not the first year of the redesign. This is the second year of the redesign. Was there significant changes or further changes, significant changes between last year's redesign and this year's? Did they bring in more redesign?
No.
Or it was kind of like what it was the year before?
It was similar to the year before. The year one, was sort of a guess.
Right.
But the blueprint for the exam didn't change from year one of 2.0 to year 2.
Okay, thank you.
We know that reading and writing combined into one test has been a huge challenge, especially for our grades 3 through 8 students. Prior to the 2.0 redesign, students were tested in writing in grades 4 and grade 7, and now reading and writing are tested across the board in all grade levels. I actually think that's a great idea because that's how we synthesize information. But we also, writing is also now a component in the STAR science exams in grades 5 and grade 8. And it's also, there's a short constructed response for our 8th grade social studies and our EOCs as well. So there's a huge emphasis in writing. And so you'll probably hear me talking a lot today about that and its impact and our plans moving forward.
I would just add that while the test format hasn't changed, the cut score for how the state determines approaches, meets, or masters does get set very late in the game. So that does get shuffled. And then the way students have been graded, we're going to talk about this later, but the way students have been graded in writing changed significantly.
So we're talking about testing of writing at all levels, cross-curricular. Read, explain, write was sort of the mentality prior to the 2.0, and now it is reading, write, much higher level. Evidence-based writing response to reading and through passage and reading selections. So again, just sort of an overview of where we're heading in this part of the discussion. Any questions? Okay, so we're going to jump into our EOC. I want to preface the conversation that as we look at this data, what you'll see is that statewide scores have gone down. Our EOC data, though, I feel like there's a lot of points of pride in our EOC data, with the exception of English 1. That's definitely an area of concern. And so examining the transition from 8th grade to high school and how we support students through that transition is work we are investing in.
With the statewide decline, have they figured out if that's part to the computer grading of the test? I know they did a sample of computer versus human, but did they ever really any of that data to see if it's comparable?
The sampling showed that the human grading, and I suspect you're talking about the extended constructive response, the human grading was easier, like students did better on that, and the AI grading was more rigorous. But what we found as a district, upon getting that data, and I'll get to it in a minute, is that when you align the results of what we saw to the rubric, AI was pretty well on point. Any other questions?
You might answer this later, but I'm curious if you guys analyzed why the 8th graders did so much better.
Yeah. So looking at STAR data at first glance, you would see high percentage of passing 8th grade STAR, Algebra 1 at 8th grade level. You see 98%, some schools 100%, that sort of thing. But when you dig down into it a little bit and you're examining kids who are going from meets to masters, or approaches to meets, that sort of thing, what we saw was a decline. And so that's a point of concern and something we're already talking about and discussing. And so what we found is, or what we realized is that passing the test isn't enough. We have to guarantee growth. And that's what we're committed to, growing students 1 year, at least 1 year, wherever they are in their educational journey. So if they were at meets this year, they should maintain meets, but hopefully grow to masters next year. Or if they were at approaches, move to meets, etc. And so, yes, but at first glance, you wouldn't see that if you're just looking at passing, right? And so, obviously, that has an effect on accountability, but honestly, more importantly, it's about growing our students. So this is the overall performance for our EOCs. Let me just take a look at that. 2023 is outlined in teal, and then orange or red is 24 data. We're, of course, examining college, career, military readiness. Our data here is pretty impressive. We continue to grow. And points to highlight is TSIA 2, math and reading, we're up 20%. Industry-based certifications at 8%. AP, 8%, student credit, and honor referrals.
When they were asking about dual credit, it's 2% from all grants, is that the number of kids who did, a comparison between the kids who didn't participate from the year before to this year, or how is that looked at?
Sure. So the dual credit honor, it's about the percent of students who earned their CCMR credit using that particular indicator. And so dual credit is earning either 3 hours in reading or math or 9 overall. So the decrease is the percent of students who earn 3 in reading or math or 9 overall. And so I think we see a decrease in dual credit non-reps, we saw an increase in AP. And those are typically the scales that, you know, if you see a rise in dual credit non-reps, you often see a fall in AP. And so this year we saw the opposite, so a rise in AP and a fall in the other two. Because you're generally looking, those are your college credit earning opportunities. And so more kids funneling into it, but they're sometimes kind of choosing different paths.
I think Wes said it well. Essentially what he's saying is we want every student to have an opportunity to either earn an industry-based certification, be in AP classes, or be in dual credit. It'd be wonderful if there were multiple of those, but ultimately our high schools are tasked with the idea of just really knowing are our students getting these opportunities, and if not, what are the things counselors and assistant principals can be doing to help make sure we open the door for those opportunities for students.
Okay, so now we're going to take a look at STAR 3-8, reading, math, science, and social studies. And again, this is the big picture, lots of numbers overview. And I addressed it earlier. Overall, the state shows that this exam was more rigorous than last year's exam. And we've already addressed, you'll see, this is where you'll see the red for that 8th grade algebra ones. That's definitely talked to us about, or asked about. Just give me a moment to process that. And we're going to get into the weeds a little bit more. So overall, GISC math grades 3 through 5 performance, and you can see the approaches meets masters for 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And we're looking at this through the lens of grade levels. And then we're going to look at the same thing through math, through 6 through 8. And then reading. And I guess the one thing as I was studying this data, I was thinking about like there's for sure some grade level issues that we're going to have to address, making sure that we're tightening up on the right standards. Not all standard is equal, right? And so making sure we're identifying those standards and addressing them at an appropriate level as the student progresses through grade levels. But also wanted to point out, you can see some cohort growth on here. Like for example, if you look at 3rd grade in the teal, that would be 4th grade in the orange. Those are the same students in the orange. Just wanted to point that out there. We do see groups of students growing, but acknowledge for sure that there is some grade level, adjustments we're definitely going to have to make.
Across the state, does it look similar when you break it down like this?
That's a great question.
Right now, across the state, I think what our previous slide showed that the state saw a decline in every grade level, but as a district, we are still performing under the state average in more than one grade level.
And then this is reading 6 through 8. And again, looking at this through the lens of making grade level adjustments. So the question then comes up is, what were the predictors of this, right? And so we've used our MWEA math data on here in math for grades K through 5, or excuse me, K through 8. And use that as a predictor, and you can see that there's not a lot of difference, right? Like there is some connection between the two, NWEA MAP and STAR. What is tricky about NWEA MAP is that it does not assess standards. It assesses skills and assesses concepts, but it doesn't assess standards. So it's really good data for like our team to use as we're looking at curriculum through the lens of skills and that sort of thing. But it becomes quickly outdated for teachers to use after it's been administered, because the learning continues and that's not aligned to the standards in which teachers leverage the learning. Does that make sense? So what we know and are working on is the idea of common formative assessments, which is a lot more meaningful for our teachers, and ensuring that those common formative assessments are aligned to standards so they can quickly pivot with their students and ensure that students are getting the appropriate support, whether it's extension, because we're growing on kids because they've shown mastery of that standard, or whether it's intervention because there's holes in their learning.
I know this sounds like one small detail out of what we're presenting here, but what Ms. Carney just talked about there, which is like, we have a third grade team at Cooper Elementary, having that third grade team create their own formative assessment that they can turn around and do something about in a timely manner is significantly more important than MAPS. MAPS gives us a good predictor about how our kids do it in math. But the hard part for the teacher here is, what do I do with this? How do I turn around and make this action? As opposed to if we are a third grade math team, we create our own assessment and we see how our students did on different items.
That are tightly aligned to the standard.
Tightly aligned to the standard, right? Not just, this seems like a good math question, but we know this addresses the standard. You can turn around and do something about it.
And I think part of that is also making sure that there are exemplars in place for teachers to leverage to know what the rigor of the standard really is. And now that we do have 2 years of STAR under our belt, STAR 2.0 under our belt, there are more samples now available. And so having those exemplars present and aligning accordingly makes a huge difference for sure.
So if you're shifting to implement this at the team level or grade level, like a third grade team, what are you looking at to make sure that it's actually being done
Right.
or utilized versus something? This is, you can present this, how you have individual teams create individual tools. How are we going to ensure alignment with that? How do we go to 17 third grade teams or whatever we have now and create a whole disparity in the system? We're going to end up with a whole bunch of variables and we're going to sit around and talk about, well, we don't know why that campus did this and this campus did that. It seems like we're creating more variables instead of minimizing.
I think it's a thread. So what I mean by that is this would come after CFAs, after common formative assessments. We should see stronger numbers here when common formative assessments are given regularly and given with intentionality and with alignment. And so we're working, and we'll get to this.
I was like, that's where we were. We're going to talk about this later in the presentation, but it's not just the implementation of it, but it's a system of accountability, meaning there has to be a relationship between how we talk about the data, between the principal working with the team of teachers, and then the principal working with their supervisor to talk about what do our latest data points tell us. And the principal has, and the teams will have, they're empowered to have the autonomy to implement it, but talking about the results is how we hold each other accountable.
So will the, hypothetically using this third grade analogy, so will the team at Amy Pearl be talking to the third grade team at Carver, the third grade team at Ford? So will they be doing some sort of cross-referencing so even their assessments are somewhat unified?
Right, so maybe not to that level. The idea is our principals are going to be engaging in continuous support through this lens. So will our assistant So we'll our learning design coaches, and then all supported with us and our team, that sort of thing. So everyone at the campus level is getting the same level of support and continuously throughout.
Yeah, you know, Ms. Blake, I would.
Oh, you go.
I just want to be very candid about this. This is a marathon, not a sprint, and this is messy work. And so, helping kind of shape what this looks like over the course of the year is, you know, here we are at this board workshop talking about the intention, but the implementation of it is going to be messy. So that continuous conversation to ensure that we have quality and alignment to the curriculum is going to be critical. And I think you're going to hear me talk about this multiple times, but if we're aligned to the curriculum, then the formative assessments and the accountability conversation should all fall in line. You know, the real role of the principal supervisor is they will be able to tell when something's out of alignment on each campus and be able to coach the principal into finding that alignment again. Lindsay, I know you wanted to say something.
We were tracking in the same direction, our curriculum, and we have other assessment resources that are common across campuses. And so as any third grade team sits down to look at the standard they're building an assessment for, the curriculum is a resource for that, but also the assessment resources provided, they'll be pulling from the same information and making decisions from the same shared set of information. So the decision may be slightly different, but it shouldn't be wildly different because we have enough common resources that the campuses share.
But the idea is to be able to address that specific campus, hey, this is where we're struggling, how do we help these kids over this route?
Yes, ma'am.
And just so that they,
And you know, we don't happen to have any principals here this morning, but just that sense of team and having each other's back and being able to be vulnerable about each other's data is going to be critical for us because there is no such thing as all 16 principals bagging it out. We're making mistakes, things aren't going to go the way we want, we're not making the progress we want to be making, and we have to be able to have those conversations in order to make progress. We're going to briefly say something about M-Class and then hand it back to Jen here, but M-Class is a universal screener assessment that we use to gauge our students' reading on grade level. And so it is a good predictor, but we actually asked our team to use M-Class results and say, how did the rank start? Like, if kids were performing below grade level on M-Class, did that mean that they did not pass STAR? And actually, on M-Class, if a student was reading below grade level, a decent number of those students, not half, but enough to be significant, ended up passing the STAR test. So the nice thing about M-Class is, if we use it as a worst case scenario on how kids are reading, it is something principals can use to address the students in need of timely intervention and give them a chance to be able to make sure they're reading on grade level. But STAR is a data point, M-Class is a data point, the teacher's own information about how kids are reading in the classroom is a data point. We want to use all those data points to figure out how do we get kids to read on grade. Okay, that's what we're doing.
Any questions?
On in-class, is in-class more where the student is reading and the teacher is really gauging how quickly, is it more of a test of fluency?
It's not, there is some fluency, it's very comprehensive. It's phonological, phonemic, comprehensive, fluency, and vocabulary.
Okay, so it's more than just fluency?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this is Ames Web.
Ames Web was very much fluency. Yes. Okay, so looking at writing grades 3 through our EOC 2. Again, this is evidence-based writing. And one of the things that was a quick turnaround in Georgetown when we received this data and looking at an opportunity to reevaluate our zeros, we took advantage of that. And so we created a training for our campus leaders to attend. And then had them look at their own students' writing samples that were a 0. And it's a little bit surprising that, you know, when we think of a student receiving a 0, a lot of times we would assume that there was just a no response there, or something like I love my mom, or, you know, something charming like that, right? But that wasn't the case. There was a great deal of students who attempted to write. And so our takeaway from examining those zeros was that we know our students know how to summarize. We know our students are able to identify main ideas. What was missing was students creating a controlling idea and using text evidence to support their ideas. And that's that read, think, write part. It's that think part, and synthesizing information and making it something useful and meaningful. So moving forward, we definitely have a plan for that to support our teachers to make sure that this occurs. We know that the extended constructive response, which is on the 3rd through 8th grade reading, writing, or RLA exams, and then on the EOCs for English 1 and 2, make up close to about 20% of the students' overall score. It's a 10-point question, and they can get 0 to 10 points. It is on a 5-point scale, and it's just evaluated twice, and it's the cumulative score. So it goes through 2 separate AI engines. That was that happened this year. And STAR 2.0 last year, at least 2 graders evaluated.
Were we going to send any of our zeros in to get reevaluated?
Yes, we sent 3 back.
3.
Yes, ma'am. So,
Have you gotten the results yet?
not that I mean, we sent them back right before our break, so I haven't seen any.
My grandson feels like he beat AI. He did good.
You know, the easiest way, a couple things, just to be frank about it, is the state is not going to say, oh, AI was too harsh, let's not do that anymore. They're just going to keep doing it. And if humans, when they saw kids writing, showed some grace and mercy to kids who couldn't get a decent number, AI shows no grace and mercy. It has the rubric fed into it, and it says, you met the criteria, you didn't, and it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, and that's exactly what we found. That's what we literally read hundreds of essays and found 3. And so, and when you align it to the rubric, AI did it, in my opinion, did its job. And so it'll be interesting to see if we get those 3 back, what happens when we get those 3 back. But it feels like AI did its job. So, and we even went so far as if we think one needs to go back to the state, let's get a second person to read it as well, just to be sure we didn't see
A
it.
great learning experience.
Well, that
overall.
ultimately was the takeaway, was the learning from it, right, bringing to attention what students are actually asked to do. And the misconceptions, like we created a big list of misconceptions that we can draw upon and use to leverage learning for our teachers and students.
So do classrooms have access to that same grading level? Like if an English teacher is having kids practice writing, do they have access to use that kind of AI grading to see how AI matches up and says, hey, so that they're learning to write at the level that AI is going to grade
Right.
at? If not, teacher, there's still a person grading.
I have not explored that. That's a great idea.
Great idea.
Great idea. What they do
Get on that,
have, what they do have access to is their students' writing that they submitted. And so they can see that along with, of course, the rubric and compare, and really better understand it. But that's great. I wonder what ChatGPT would do. I'll have to. So I'm going to find out.
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, okay, so we'll keep moving. Just wanted to share what students were asked to do. This is a 5th grade prompt, and a fifth grade GISD student's response. And I wanted to give you a few minutes to digest that. I always told, I did a lot of tutoring years ago, helping students with SAT prep, and I always told students it's always going to be like this unfamiliar topic, right? It might be something that you might know a little about, like President Lincoln, but it's going to be something buried in the weeds, like President Lincoln had a blue eye and a green eye. He didn't, I think, he made me, I have no idea. But it's going to be something in the weeds, something, sort of obscure that requires them to actually read the passage and not just turn it.
Okay,
So this is the student's response. It's a fifth grade GISD student, and we thought we'd play a little game. Name what grade would this student get? Is it anywhere between a 0 and a 10? What do you all think? Anyone? Grade enough?
7.
It actually scored a 0. And that's because it didn't address the prompt. As you can see, the student wrote, and had it been star 1.0, our first star, the student would have gotten credit on this, at least some, right? But what the student didn't do is create a claim, create a thesis, and support it with evidence, and that is a requirement. And then, of course, the structure of it as well.
Yeah, this student just spit out some facts.
Summarized and like you can see some summary attempts, some main idea attempts, but they have to actually reference the passage.
Yeah.
They have to say in paragraph 2, or the author states, or a direct quote, or something like that.
What's really unfair is if, I was an English language arts teacher, I was an English language arts teacher, it's fifth grade, right? So if I had a fifth grader in front of me and they put this kind of effort into that response, as human beings, we would not give a kid a 0 for this. I mean, on first glance, they're pretty decent, right? The STAR test for TEA says this is a 0, so nothing changes about student outcomes without a change in teacher practice, right? So the real part, we can't go out there and be like, hey, just write better, kids, right? The real part is the education of our staff to figure out what needs to change about our practices and how we look at writing in order to help that kid have a fighting chance of meeting the standard.
In doing this whole thing, one advanced placement teacher participated at the high school level, and he's like, but on the AP exam it's this, and on this it's that. And I said, so what's the common thread? Where can we meet the common ground so that kids don't have to learn 2 ways of writing? Let's have them learn the right way of writing that will support a student regardless of what test they enter into. Right? That was the misconception. I wrote that down, and now we got that. So this is a third grade extended constructive response prompt. We didn't include an answer, but we can certainly get you some if you want to see how the students did. But you can, we wanted you to see what a third grader is being asked to do and the level of rigor in which they are supposed to engage. Just so you know, third grade Spanish STAR has a completely different prompt. So our elementary students who are taking the Spanish STAR, the prompts are different. So third grade had to read 2 passages and write an argumentative response if they were testing in Spanish. 7th grade also had to write an argumentative response. And 6th grade had 2 passages in which they were supposed to use second. It's a lot. It's a lot.
and you're looking at the curriculum development, I would think it's going to look even more different than it's looked in the past.
We've now developed tools to help support teachers with the pacing of writing, so that it's not February, March, and we're like cramming, this is how you write an essay, guys. You know, we used to be able to do that. We used to, when I was in fourth and seventh, like, I mean, I taught it, I know. Here's your 26 lines, here's, you know, like, and it's not that way. So we are really being methodical about how we support teachers and the timeliness of it, so that it's a continuous progression of learning for our teachers and obviously for our students. So it's all paced out.
Mr. President, would you like to take a 5-minute break or power through? Okay. All right, let's keep going.
All right, now the fun stuff. All right, so reading grade 3-8 instructional considerations. The need to identify standards and curriculum alignment is a priority in our July work. So we've taken obviously an examination of STAR as a whole at grade level and that sort of thing, but we need to now, in this month, we're going to be focusing on standards to make sure that the standards are leveled up enough in our curriculum documents, and so we can help our teachers identify what's truly essential within each unit. We're going to curriculum and instruction adjustments and emphasis for intervention, and solidify the UPSI or other problem-solving processes. And so what UPSI is a math framework to help our students unpack word problems. And their reading is a big part of math. It's not just simply computational skills. It's actually a huge part of math, reading graphs, reading small problems, that sort of thing. And so UPSI is an acronym for understanding the question, plan your approach, solve the problem, and then explain your thinking. And the idea of employing a strategy like this from K all the way through Algebra 1 and beyond is that it's vertical. Every time a student enters into a math problem like this, the strategy doesn't change. The level of rigor might change, but how you approach it stays the same. And so it's not new learning, it's not a new twist each grade level, right? It's something that students will employ and know to do, and it'll become a lot more innate, a way of thinking. It's metacognitive.
Tell me again what S and E is.
S is solve the problem, and E is explain your thinking.
Thank you. One of the concerns that I hear from middle school teachers in the mathematics area is the frustration of what's expected on the problem solving at a very high level. With the fact that the students do not have some fundamental skills such as multiplication and division, some of those, and I would assume that that also would happen, that if you're a fifth grade teacher and you're trying to teach decimals, fractions, and those kinds of things, that they don't know the subtraction, they don't know their addition and subtraction and all of those, it's just the fundamentals.
Right.
So are we making sure that as we go into the curriculum development in the mathematics area, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, I'm sure that you're hearing that.
Absolutely.
Are we making sure that that is a new piece that's being brought in to ensure that this is not a continuous problem?
Right. Absolutely. The answer is yes, we are doing that. And we're doing that through our NTSS process and supporting it through our professional learning communities.
I go back with
NTSS, multi-tier system support. It used to be called RTI.
Right.
Okay, so RTI now falls under it. Multi-tier system support is a bigger umbrella because we're also including behavior support under NTSS, and it's not just academics. So within our TI process, our teachers, and part of our work as a team is also helping teachers identify what is essential, and it's based on like the progression of students learning. Essential in third grade, for example, isn't going to be essential necessarily, and probably not in seventh grade, right? And so making sure, like I said earlier, all standards aren't created equal, and making sure that those high leverage standards that support learning and what you're talking about are the fundamental skills for mathematics are essential, are what we intervene on early. We don't want kids to continue to live in misconceptions and then wrong. It's harder for them, and it's harder to reteach it right when they're living there for a while. And so intervening quickly, because of those essential standards have been identified early on.
But I was thinking that this, when we're talking about these kind of skills, the fundamental skills, that would be very much of a tier one.
It is tier one, but making sure that tier one, if we're saying like addition is essential in the first grade, then we intervene if they're not showing the necessary skill that we need to right away. We start right away. We're calling tier two still grade level. It's just on those essential skills. Is that? Okay. Okay. So then in reading, our instructional considerations is centered around the K-5 framework that includes all critical components of, and we talked about this, for the awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension, along with writing. This is where you're going to hear me speak a lot about writing. Critical reading and critical writing emphasis across the curriculum through pieces across content areas. And like I already alluded to, we're talking about making sure that the learning is paced out. We don't wait until spring to start teaching writing. It's something that is ongoing in all classrooms across the board. Fundamentally, we believe that learning to write is the role of the reading language arts teacher, but writing to learn is the role of anyone who interacts with students in the classroom. Everyone's a literacy teacher, and it can't fall on the responsibility of just one content and one time a day. It has to be continuous, and students have to be engaged in writing every day in every class. Embedding authentic learning on paired responses and extended constructive response questions. And then accountability to follow the GISD curriculum, ensuring that our leaders and our teacher leaders are following the curriculum. It is aligned, it is tight, it has the necessary supports within it.
This may sound very obvious, but when we talk about accountability to follow the curriculum, we do not have cookie cutter lessons that this is how you have to teach this lesson. But what's not negotiable is teaching the standards in a way that's been set by the teachers and staff of this school district. This isn't Jen Carney and Evan sitting in the room coming up with the curriculum. This has been a collaborative effort, and if we can't address the standards, especially the high priority standards that we set for the school district, then kids are losing. They're not getting more than they need.
So how would you, what does accountability look like? Does that look like?
Yeah, we have some systems that we're going to support principals with, but ultimately it is the role of the principal and assistant principal to ensure that when they're working with PLCs, when they're doing walkthroughs of classrooms, that there is that alignment to the curriculum, and that our principals are able to tell. It doesn't seem like it's on track, but coaching the professional learning community and being able to be part of those meetings is going to be critical. Lindsay, Heather, would you add anything?
No, I'd say that the emphasis on time spent in classrooms with our campus leaders, but also with us as district leaders, gives us that opportunity to see in real time is our curriculum being used, and then to have conversations and notice, help me understand, and walk through that so that, we can address those in real time versus wait till we see assessment data and think, oh my gosh, what happened? And learn at that point, oh, we weren't using our curriculum and see it with our eyes.
STAR Science and Social Studies, the instructional considerations, again, cross-curricular, critical reading and critical writing. All of our process standards and all of our contents include writing. So, it's non-negotiable. I'm thinking process for critical writing, and critical reading and writing emphasis on the curriculum. Look, it's a little overstated, but maybe not. So our instructional priorities, the work we're already doing is curriculum scope and sequence and other adjustments to solidify literacy framework. And I'm just going to give you a really tiny example of that. We have changed the guide for our English 3 and English 4 at the high school, kind of flip some units around to ensure that those strong writing practices are up front so that students who need to retest in December are getting the support they need right out of the chute in English 3 and English 4. So that's just an example of this is a non-negotiable, this is what we're doing moving forward.
Define the gag again.
Here at a glance. So the teacher just looks at it and sees what the unit overview is quickly, and then can click on that unit and it takes them to the unit documents.
So is there a document that says, if I'm an English 1 teacher and I don't know where to even start, is there a document that says, in August, you start with this unit? What is that?
That is the year okay. And then within each unit, we have samples of pacing guides. I should say within each unit, within each grade level, we're creating the samples of pacing guides so teachers can work to understand how it's paced out. We know we have a lot of new teachers in our district and wanting to support them. When our curriculum was originally written, we didn't have the new teachers that we have now. And so creating a lot of supports through a different lens because of who we're serving now.
You would have to have an ending day because if not, the formative assessment is not going to work.
Exactly. And so on the guide, what you would see is approximately 14 days or approximately 2 weeks or whatever the case may be, so that that unit is paced out. We're obviously examining reading, writing, and math, K-5 literacy framework, and mentioned a lot of that already on the previous slide. We did phonemic awareness, phonics, comprehension, fluency, etc. vocabulary. Critical reading and writing has content areas. Like I said, science and social studies are also being asked to write. And then thinking process for reading and math problem solving, much like the FC that I shared with you that afternoon. Assessment supports. Assessment, we're creating support systems so that there's a cadence to receiving data. Campus support teams for continuing with instructional blocks with the narrow focus. Coaching, which Lindsay and Heather will be discussing, BOY, MOY, interim assessment, and EOI. Looking at, data-based practices, progress monitoring, student goals, and student tracking. Support every student has a goal for growth and progress. We're not just focusing on students that are struggling, we're focusing on every student. Every student will have a goal, and there will be progress checks along the way. And targeted support for priority campuses, performing below and well below expectations.
What does that mean?
We're going to get to it here in a minute.
Okay, right.
I have two questions, some of them might seem silly. When we're doing writing across the curriculum, is it strictly on the computer or is it also with a physical pen or pencil?
Yeah, I would say yes. I would say both.
Develop? Yeah, because that's a big challenge when you
Worked
put this
with
in
a
there.
lot of teachers that, because of AI, they want their students first to handwrite and kind of the old-fashioned way, so that they don't double prompt into ChatGPT, for example, and something fantastic gets generated, which that would never happen, so. But, so I would say yes to both.
Okay, the other question is, will we have enough interventionists across the district as well?
So that's a tricky question, I mean, to be honest with you, but how we're formulating our work and our support and our intervention is that tier 1 is for all students, regardless of anything, right? We've defined all as anyone who is going to lead an independent life, okay? So if that child falls into that definition, they're getting tier 1 instruction. Tier 2 is being supported through the lens of still grade level standards that were essential, so that's why we're calling essential intervention standards. We're intervening on the essential standards that are grade level. The old model that we were using with Andrea Olkanowski and some of that work is become very anecdotal and very difficult to support, and working with Solution Tree, we learn more and we're doing better. And so having a well-defined tier 2 allows our classroom teachers to also support students in tier 2.
Ms. Blake, I would also just share, I mean, I can't say this enough, and, I think about the work of our principals and the expectations and the ability to allocate their time well is going to be, the expectations keep growing. The role, the job of the principal continues to get more complex. But the most important intervention, I mean, anyone who serves as an interventionist in our district is important. Everyone who touches a kid is important to our school district. But the most important intervention we have is high quality first time in school, which is why the role of the principal is so important. If we can ensure high quality instruction the first time that students learning content is happening, then the need for cleanup afterwards drops. Now, there will always be some kids, there will always be some students who need the extra support. But through MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support structures, and high-quality first-time instruction, our ability to improve learning should grow.
And that just leaves in tier 3 and tier 3 if our kids are performing below grade level. So that window should be we're getting. So the original question, do we have enough interventionists? Hopefully the answer is somewhere in there, and I think it's hard to quantify that. Instructional support for campuses. Coaching, campus visits, professional learning, and accountability cadence are built in, and like you mentioned, like we are building in those cadences. Like there will be no surprises. Campuses will know what to expect and when to expect it. Professional learning, community support. This is the continued work that we're doing with NTSS. We're part of our July DLT. We'll be supporting that work specifically. Creating a right system for PLCs, for professional learning communities, ensuring that our teachers are looking at student data, aligning instruction, responding to it, either through extension or through intervention. And then using those student goals to help us monitor. Data tracking systems, and then the others are the BOY and OY. EOY support, I mentioned the goal for every student, and then the essential intervention standards.
So what's on the screen is a snapshot from a document that encompasses some work and ongoing conversation we've had this summer. Some context for the conversation. One is, and Dr. Padilla and I even talked about it this morning, this idea that we want to be a place, you heard it on a 2-hour podcast, I think it encapsulates the conversation we've been having for months. We want to be an organization where the standards and expectations are really high for kids, for leaders, for us as a district team, but also where the supports are really high too. We don't want to have high support and not high expectations or vice versa. I think the other thing is, what he just spoke to was the role of the principal. We know that the principalship is really 3 kinds of leadership. We need them to be really great instructional leaders. We need them to be really great cultural leaders. They won't keep staff, they won't engage families, they won't make progress on work if they're not growing great cultures in their building. But also we need them to be great operational leaders. We need to make good decisions in hard times, whether it's about money or safety or buildings. And so supporting and creating systems of support in all 3 of those areas is the work of us as a district leadership team. I think that we're organized in a way this coming year to do that really well. And what you see reflected in this document is the coming together of Sonia, who's supervising principals and leading the instructional leadership work, working with Heather and me and Wes around the cultural and operational leadership of principals as well. But what we know is nobody can only be paying attention to one of those roles of the principal at a time. And so how are we cohesively going to build a system that allows principals to be great at all 3? And so some of the things that are reflected on that document are the kinds of learning principals are going to receive, that it's really, no, you're good, sorry. That it's really highly intentional and systemized and timed with our data cadences, timed with our commitment to literacy framework, timed with some of the other rhythms of the school district, and those are reflected there. We actually are going to grow those learning opportunities for principals so that there's times the principals and teams are coming together and learning, with learning led by Sonia and Jen and us around instruction so that everybody's hearing that all at the same time and not just dependent on the principal to turn around learning and let that permeate their campus, but we'll have more of a role in that as a district leadership team. We also have organized how does Sonia's rhythm with being on campuses and walking classrooms and the conversations she and Jen and the coordinators are having in PLCs and at learning design coach meetings, how does that influence what Heather and I are talking about in our coaching sessions with principals? For sure, we may be talking about a hiring conundrum or something else going on, but how are we asking about what Sonia and Jen are talking about with principals? How are we getting in PLCs? How are we walking classrooms with the principals as well so that it's all the same conversation and it doesn't feel like they put on one hat to talk to Sonia and put on another hat to talk to Lindsay and Heather and Wes. And so we're trying to be very intentional about that. Some other new things that we're going to do this year, we're going to walk campuses with regularity. And by walk campuses, I mean walk into classrooms. We're going to schedule those with campus principals, not just in our weekly coaching times, but also as a district team to come over and walk campuses, study curriculum, talk about what we see, both to calibrate, but also to give the principals some time to establish the next steps from that work. We also are going to have what we're calling campus support team meetings with regularity, which is a team of district staff there with the intention of hearing, how's it going, how do you know, and now what do you need from us. And the work is that we'll lead with the to-do items as support for the campus principal, but we'll also be getting to hear how it's going and how they know. So that's where data conversations will come up. And we've got those scheduled really routinely and not just about MAP data or MTSS data, but very much diving into common formative assessment data, things principals are seeing in walkthroughs, that sort of thing. So it's a work in progress. We have it well built way past September, but we're excited about some of these new rhythms. And and very established cohesion between what's going on in teaching and learning, what's going on in principal coaching, and how we're supporting all aspects of the principalship and all conversations so that there's good outcomes for student learning and not just one department in the district paying attention to the learning while another department may be paying attention to safety or the principal is the leader.
I'm just going to add a little bit about, Jen mentioned targeted supports for high priority campuses. I was going to talk a little bit about how this document is for all of our principals, kind of the bigger overview of how we're going to support them through the organizational, operational, and instructional lenses of campus leadership. But then specifically, what are we doing for these high priority campuses? So that we kind of sum it up in 2 different words. Kind of early, we're going to be doing things really early, hopefully, being very proactive, and then also just more, and just priority supports, whether those are resources, time, just really being really intentional about how we support our high priority campuses. Not to get too in the weeds, but like already we have looked at master schedules on some of these campuses to make sure they're running efficiently, because it really is about the systems, right? We've got great people on campuses, we've got great curriculum, we have high expectations. So how we put systems in place to help support campus leadership to be able to be efficient, because their jobs are really big, and there's lots of things that can get in their way of doing the important work of being in classrooms and providing feedback to teachers and ultimately growing kids and students. So anyway, so that's one big piece. In June, we're going to be we looked at master schedules in July. Coming up, we'll see even we have some things outlined there. Individual meetings with priority campuses to review systems, effective school framework improvement timeline. So already kind of put some foresight that this is going to be what we're going to need to use it. It's good stuff. It's a good framework to be pulling from. What are those high leverage practices that these campuses can put in place as soon as possible to really start to move the needle on student growth in the direction that we need to grow. So that would be it. I'd also say that feels like this is kind of my first year to be in this role coaching principals, but working with Lindsay, I know that the intentionality between the instructional pieces and the other pieces is more of a push this year. So I think that would be really powerful. We went on learning walks last year, and it was a good team that went together, but I felt like there's so much, kind of magic in the idea that we go and do this, but then we also are able to have these follow-up conversations about, okay, here's how we're going to support you. What support do you need, campuses, teachers? What do you need, right, to get where you need to be? But then there's also this regular cadence of us being able to follow up and say, all right, how's that going? What else do you need? Are we making the progress that you want and moving things in the right direction? So I'm excited about that. And then the other thing I was going to mention, and Lindsay kind of mentioned it too, is that this is the starting point. I feel like we always say, let's put that in the year plan. Yeah, because this is really kind of our home base for making sure that we have everything aligned. So the power of this is that it is principals, it is talking about DLT, but it's also going to align with like our assistant principal, like AP learning that we do every month. It's going to align with that. So assistant principals are hearing a very similar message to what the principals are. And then during the instructional leadership team meetings, the instructional leader coaches on the campuses are hearing the same things. Assistant principals, teacher leaders, everybody's on the same page. So really excited about this work, and Sonia's brought a lot of this thinking to the district. We're excited to start it.
Lindsay and Heather did such a great job just kind of outlining what principal support looks like. I'll just kind of close with 2 things and see if we have any questions. But, research says the most important thing we can do for a kid is make sure we have a high quality teacher in the classroom. The second most important thing we can do is a high quality principal as instructor. And so for the 4 of us and everyone else inside this room, the principal is our customer. And so this isn't just expectations. It's support, it's investment, it's honestly a culture of care. Like this is going to be tough work for our principals, so we have to be there to help set the expectation, but also provide a high level of support as well. And Lindsay said it perfectly, but I want to go back to a question you asked, which is what does accountability look like, right? So Lindsay had 3 questions. How's it going? How do you know? And what do you need from me? So essentially, what we're doing is we're helping the principal establish systems with 3rd grade team. If you want to keep using that as an example of knowing, how's it going? How do you know? And what do you need from me? And then in the coaching conversations with their supervisor, it's how's it going? How do you know? And what do you need from me? And then I have a cadence of conversations with them, and I ask the question, how's it going? How do you know? And what do you need from me? And then my responsibility is, I'm held accountable to you to let you know early, not just middle of the year, end of the year. This is how it's going. This is how we know. And I think in the year we work together, we have another relationship where you understand, like, don't look right, I'm gonna tell you. You know? And then, but you also want to hear, what are we doing about it? And so we will continue to have that level of transparency as we go about this work. And then ultimately, yes, the STAR data, accountability rating that would come out, it matters. But this is about student learning. We want every kid to be learning at the highest levels possible so they have the confidence to take on whatever's after Georgetown on stage. So we are going to do whatever it takes to make sure every kid is learning at the highest levels possible. Trustees, do you have any questions for us?
I guess the one question I've got is about the formative assessments. And so can you give me an example of a standard that's in the curriculum? And let's say that we take fourth grade. The standard that's in the fourth grade curriculum and what the teaching would look like. And then when you say that the teachers are going to develop, or the team is going to develop a formative assessment, what is that formative assessment going to look like? And I would have to think that it would have to be somehow the results are by computer, or it would have to be entered, because the principal's then not going to know what the formative assessment results were for every single curriculum example or standards or whatever. I mean, there's a lot that's taught within a school year. So I'm just trying to figure out, how does all of this really happen?
I'm trying to write you a quick assessment to demonstrate. Let's see. Well, I'm going to use math because we talked a lot about math. And you mentioned fourth grade, so adding and subtracting fractions is a standard in fourth grade. If a teacher asks, and this is so low level, I'm using it only through the lens of this is an example, right? It's not a word problem, it's not anything like that. Okay, so if the student had to add 1/4 plus 3/4, that was question number 1. And if the student can answer that accurately, that tells the teacher something, okay? But the standard is, like, let's say it's 1 2/7 plus 2 4 7. The denominator the same, and let's say this is 7/12 plus, let's do 6/12, let's do 3 2s, plus 5/10. Okay, so let's say here's 1/4 plus 3/4. That tells the teacher something, right? If the next question on the same assessment is 6/12 plus 5/10, if the student gets it right, it tells the teacher something. If the student gets it wrong, it tells the teacher something. You can separate students now to potentially 2 groups here, right? And then, but the ultimate standard is adding 1 2/7 plus 2 4/7. If the student's able to do this, that tells the teacher something. If they're not able to do this, it also tells them something. So they're able to, what we're calling them learning progressions. This might be the level of rigor that the student needs to get to, but if they don't know how to do this, we need to intervene here so that they can work their way towards that. If they know how to do this, but don't know how to do this, we don't need to back up. We need to start here with them. And so helping our teachers create these groups of learning through stations and that sort of thing is where all that comes into play.
To build on that and answer another part of your question, which is how does this really happen? There's not just August professional development, but there's ongoing learning for our adults to help get to a place where we're really good at building formative assessments. Then there's ongoing professional development for our principals. Like, it's helping them understand, what should I be looking for if math wasn't my jam when I was a teacher? What should I be looking for that is helpful to that professional learning community at that school? And then, Jen gets to work with coordinators and directors in this building who are also part of those conversations. And so when we're all kind of singing off the same sheet of music and having a basic understanding of what we can be looking for to give feedback on. And it's not so much that you have to be expert, you just have to know how to ask the right questions, right? Talk to me about how this assessment addresses the learning impressions, right? Because especially for a high school teacher, I was a high school principal. I don't know what was going on in chemistry, right? But I knew enough to ask the right question. Tell me how this assessment addresses those things. And if you can ask the right question, we have so many talented staff that they'll be able to answer the question that gives the principal an understanding of, this is on the right track. Or I know other questions I can ask them to help that person get there.
What is most essential in this unit and what does it look like?
Not easy.
I'm real excited there.
I did.
I don't have any questions, but I do want to thank you guys for doing the work to get us everything early in this process so that we had time to actually look through it and review it before we came, ask questions ahead of time. You guys, I think, did a phenomenal job of incorporating and answering. I know you guys have a ton of deadlines just to meet your work, and then having to meet additional deadlines just to get us information is a little bit of extra for you. So I think unanimously we all really appreciated the access we had to this information earlier this time. It's such an important, big discussion that needs to keep happening. So I just really want to thank you guys for the work to make sure that that happened for us. And then also, I really love hearing the intentionality of not losing the good and the great that our district has done over the years, but also being able to incorporate and shift kind of a focus to what is the new good and great we need to bring in. But it seems to be a real intentionality from all you guys to continue what has made us great while we still try to get to the place we want to drive to. So I appreciate that as well.
All right, boys, on it. I am absolutely delighted with this workshop today.
Yes, thank you.
We do not need closed session today, so we are good to adjourn whenever you are.